I am Samantha, a 32-year-old marketing executive in Chicago. For years, I thought supporting my parents through retirement was what a good daughter does. We were close, or so I believed. Then last Thursday, my brother Jason accidentally sent me screenshots of their private group chat. The name? Sam's wallet. Their words burned into my brain, family ATM. Too stupid to realize we're using her. In that moment, my entire world collapsed. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Before I continue with my story, let me know where you're watching from. Click like and subscribe if you've ever felt betrayed by those closest to you. Growing up in suburban Minnesota, our family appeared normal from the outside. My parents, Robert and Diana, worked steady jobs that provided us with a comfortable middle-class life. As the eldest child, I learned responsibility early. My brother Jason, 2 years younger, seemed to glide through life with an ease I never experienced. While I washed dishes and helped with laundry, Jason played video games. When I received as, my parents nodded with expected satisfaction. When Jason brought home CS, they celebrated his effort. Our childhood home held countless memories of this disparity. I remember my 16th birthday when I received practical gifts, a planner, gift cards for college supplies, and a used laptop. 3 months later, Jason turned 14 and got the latest gaming system, new basketball shoes, and a weekend trip to an amusement park. At the time, I rationalized this as my parents recognizing our different interests. Now I see it was the beginning of a pattern. High school showcased our differences further. I joined every academic club possible, served as yearbook editor, and maintained a perfect GPA. My parents attended exactly 2 of my academic award ceremonies. Meanwhile, they never missed a single one of Jason's basketball games, even when his team played in tournaments 3 hours away. When college applications arrived, I applied to 12 schools and received scholarships to most. My parents seemed proud but distracted, more concerned with Jason's basketball prospects despite his mediocre grades. I chose Northwestern University based on their excellent marketing program and partial scholarship. The day I received my acceptance letter, my father patted my shoulder and said, "That's nice. But remember, we can't help much with tuition. We need to save for Jason's college fund." I nodded, already accustomed to this reality. College years proved challenging financially. I worked 3 part-time jobs, mornings at a coffee shop, evenings at the campus library, and weekends doing data entry for a local business. Between work and maintaining my GPA, sleep became a luxury. Meanwhile, Jason attended State University with full parental support, including spending money for parties and spring break trips. Despite the workload, I thrived academically and secured a marketing internship my junior year. This led to an entry-level position after graduation. I started as a marketing assistant at a mid-sized firm in Chicago, living with 3 roommates in a cramped apartment to save money. My starting salary barely covered student loans, rent, and basic necessities, but I felt proud of my independence. Over the next 8 years, I worked tirelessly, often being first in and last out of the office. My dedication paid off with regular promotions, eventually reaching an executive position with a 6-figure salary. I finally moved into my own apartment, a modest but beautiful 1-bedroom in a secure building. Financial stability felt like a hard-won victory. Then came the call that would change everything. My father, at 58, developed severe back problems that prevented him from continuing his work as a warehouse manager. 6 months later, my mother's arthritis worsened to the point where her job as an administrative assistant became impossible. They had some savings and modest pensions, but it quickly became apparent these wouldn't cover their expenses. "We miscalculated our retirement needs," my father explained during a Sunday dinner at their home. "The medical bills are eating through our savings faster than we expected." My mother added, tears in her eyes, "We might need to sell the house if things continue this way." Without hesitation, I offered help. "I can cover the shortfall each month. You shouldn't have to leave your home." Their gratitude seemed genuine. My father hugged me tightly, whispering, "You've always been our rock, Sam." My mother wiped away tears, saying, "We raised such a wonderful daughter." Initially, I sent them $2,000 monthly to supplement their income. As their supposed medical expenses increased, so did my contributions. Meanwhile, Jason's employment history remained spotty at best. He bounced between sales jobs, always with grand promises about commissions that never materialized. When I suggested he help with our parents' expenses, he always had excuses. He was between jobs, had car payments, or was saving for something important. The financial burden fell entirely on me, but I accepted it as my responsibility. Whenever I visited, my parents expressed profound gratitude. My mother would prepare my favorite meals, and my father would brag about my success to neighbors. These moments made the financial sacrifice worthwhile. I felt valued and appreciated in a way I hadn't during childhood. However, over the past year, something shifted. The gratitude faded, replaced by expectation. Requests for money became demands. When I mentioned a work bonus, my mother immediately asked if I could help replace their 10-year-old car. When I received a promotion, my father suggested I increase my monthly contribution since I was making so much now. Despite growing discomfort, I dismissed my concerns. They were getting older, dealing with health issues. Stress can change people, I reasoned. I never imagined there was a more sinister explanation for their behavior. The first clear warning sign appeared during a family dinner 2 months ago. I arrived at my parents' home carrying dessert from their favorite bakery, excited to share news about a potential promotion. As I entered the kitchen, I noticed my mother quickly putting her phone face down on the counter. My father and Jason, seated at the table, exchanged glances that seemed meaningful but indecipherable to me. "Is everything okay?" I asked, setting down the bakery box. "Of course, sweetheart," my mother answered too quickly. "We were just discussing Jason's new girlfriend." Throughout dinner, I noticed Jason appearing nervous whenever I had my phone out. When I took a photo of us all together, he visibly tensed. At the time, I attributed his discomfort to camera shyness. But now I recognize it as fear that I might see notifications from their group chat. As we ate dessert, my father made an odd comment. "Our Samantha, always so generous. Don't know what we'd do without her open heart and open wallet." My mother laughed a bit too loudly, while Jason studied his plate intently. The statement felt strange, but I smiled and changed the subject. Looking back, I should have paid attention to the uncomfortable silence that followed his remark. In the weeks after that dinner, my parents' financial requests increased in both frequency and amount. Previously, they asked for extra money once every few months for special circumstances. Now it seemed weekly. Unexpected medical bills, home repairs, car troubles. Each request came with elaborate stories and emotional appeals. A pattern emerged that I failed to recognize. These requests often followed conversations where I mentioned financial good fortune, a completed project that earned me recognition, a potential bonus, or a successful client meeting. It was as if they had a sixth sense for when my bank account might be growing. Small inconsistencies appeared in their stories. My mother claimed they needed money for water heater repairs. But when I visited 2 weeks later and asked how the new heater was working, she looked momentarily confused before saying, "Oh, it's fine now." During another visit, I noticed new purchases around their house, a large smart TV replacing their perfectly functional older model, expensive new patio furniture, my father wearing a designer watch I hadn't seen before. None of these items were mentioned when they described their tight financial situation days earlier. Jason's behavior toward me changed too. He began avoiding my calls and responding to texts with unusual brevity. When we did speak, he seemed uncomfortable, rushing to end conversations. At family gatherings, he kept physical distance between us, as if proximity might reveal some secret. One Sunday afternoon, I arrived at my parents' house half an hour early for our regular dinner. As I approached the front door, I overheard animated conversation from the backyard patio. "She'll never question it if we say it's for your arthritis treatment," my father's voice carried clearly. "But we already used that excuse last month," Jason responded. "Then we'll say it's a new medication not covered by insurance," my mother suggested. "She doesn't verify these things." When I made my presence known by calling out a greeting, the conversation halted abruptly. As I rounded the corner to the patio, I found them seated innocently. My mother suddenly very interested in her gardening magazine, my father checking sports scores on his phone, and Jason staring intently at his water glass. "What were you all discussing so intently?" I asked lightly. "Just Jason's work troubles," my father answered smoothly. "Nothing for you to worry about." The atmosphere at family gatherings grew increasingly strange. I'd enter rooms to find hushed conversations that immediately stopped. My mother began taking phone calls in another room, speaking in whispers. My father became overly interested in my work schedule, asking detailed questions about my meetings and when I expected bonuses or raises. Despite these warning signs, I pushed down my suspicions. These were my parents, the people who raised me. Jason was my brother, my childhood companion. Surely I was overreacting, seeing problems where none existed. I attributed my unease to work stress and perhaps a bit of resentment over being the sole financial support for our family. My friend Alicia noticed my distraction during our weekly coffee meetup. After listening to me describe recent interactions with my family, she gently suggested, "Sam, it sounds like something's off. Have you considered they might be taking advantage of your generosity?" I defended them immediately. "They're my parents, Alicia. They wouldn't use me like that." She squeezed my hand sympathetically. "I hope you're right. Just be careful, okay? Sometimes the people closest to us can hurt us the most." I dismissed her concerns, but her words lingered. A small voice inside me wondered if there might be truth to her warning. Still, I silenced that voice and continued supporting my family, believing in their love and gratitude. I never imagined how completely that trust would be shattered. Thursday evening had been remarkably ordinary. I arrived home around 7 after a productive day at work, changed into comfortable clothes, and ordered Thai food from my favorite delivery place. With a glass of wine in hand, I settled onto my couch to watch a new documentary series. My phone buzzed with a text notification from Jason. Unusual, since he rarely initiated contact these days. Opening the message, I saw he had sent several screenshots with the brief text, "Look at what they're planning, LOL." I stared at the first screenshot, confused. It showed a group chat titled Sam's Wallet with my parents and Jason as participants. For a moment, I thought it must be a joke or perhaps a surprise they were planning. Then I read the messages. My father had written, "Sam just agreed to pay for the cruise. Told her mom needs ocean air for her health." She didn't even question it. My mother's response made my stomach drop. "She's our little family ATM, always ready to dispense cash. 20 grand this year already and she doesn't even track it." Jason had replied with 3 laughing emojis and added, "She's too career-focused to have a real life or notice what's happening right under her nose." The next screenshot showed more conversation, with my father writing, "She's too stupid to realize we're using her. Always been that way, so eager to please." My mother had sent, "Let's make a list of what else we can get before year-end. I want to redo the kitchen. At least 25,000. We can tell her it's for my back treatment." Jason's contribution, "Tell her on Friday after her big meeting. She's always in a good mood after those team things and says yes to everything." More screenshots followed, showing months of similar conversations. They discussed strategies for extracting money from me, celebrated successful manipulations, and mocked my trusting nature. They shared actual spreadsheets tracking my work schedule, noting optimal times to ask for money. They had a system for creating fake emergencies when they wanted larger sums. One particularly painful exchange showed them discussing my recent breakup. "Mom, good thing she and David split. He was getting too curious about where her money goes. Dad, now we don't have to worry about him asking questions. Plus she's lonely again, which makes her more generous. Jason, she bought me a new laptop when I visited and cried about the breakup. Just had to listen for an hour, LOL." My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. The room seemed to spin as nausea swept through me. I couldn't catch my breath, each inhale feeling insufficient. This couldn't be real. These cruel, calculating people in the chat couldn't be my family, the people I trusted most in the world. I called Jason immediately. He didn't answer. I called again. And again. On the fourth attempt, he picked up, his voice cautious. "Hey Sam, what's up?" "The screenshots," I managed to say, my voice barely audible. "You sent them to me." Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Oh shit. Sam, those weren't meant for you. I was sending them to Rachel." "So it's real?" I whispered, still hoping for some explanation that would make this all a misunderstanding. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered. "We were just joking around. You know how mom and dad can be." "Joking?" My voice gained strength, fueled by rising anger. "You've been strategizing how to manipulate me for money and laughing about it. You called me stupid and mocked my breakup." "Sam, come on. Don't take it so seriously. Everyone vents about family." "This isn't venting, Jason. This is calculated exploitation." My training in crisis management at work kicked in, allowing me to speak clearly despite my emotional turmoil. "How long has this been going on?" His hesitation told me everything. "I don't know, a couple of years maybe." "Years?" The word felt like a physical blow. "You've been laughing at me behind my back for years while taking my money." "It's not like that," he protested weakly. "Look, can we talk about this tomorrow? I can explain better in person." "There's nothing to explain. The screenshots showed me exactly who you all are." I ended the call and sat in the sudden silence of my apartment. The Thai food arrived, but I couldn't eat. The wine turned sour in my mouth. I scrolled through the screenshots again and again, each reading bringing fresh pain. These weren't strangers or casual acquaintances who had betrayed me. This was my family, the people who should have loved me most. In those quiet hours of the night, something fundamental shifted inside me. The shock and pain began to crystallize into something harder, more resolute. By morning, I knew with absolute certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. Sleep evaded me entirely that night. I alternated between periods of numbed disbelief and overwhelming waves of emotion. By 6 a.m., my eyes burned from crying and lack of sleep, but my mind had achieved an unusual clarity. For the first time in my career, I called in sick, telling my boss I had a family emergency. The bitter irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. Once daylight filtered through my blinds, I began a methodical investigation into exactly how extensive their deception had been. I opened my banking app and downloaded 5 years of statements, the period during which I'd been supporting my parents. I created a spreadsheet and began entering every transaction related to them. The numbers were staggering. Over 5 years, I had given them $87,000 directly. This didn't include gifts, meals out, groceries I'd bought during visits, or the vacation to Florida I'd paid for last year. My financial support had increased each year, from $12,000 the first year to nearly $25,000 in the past 12 months. I cross-referenced the larger transfers with the reasons they'd given. $10,000 for my father's specialized back procedure. I found their social media posts from that exact week showing them on a Caribbean cruise with their neighbors. $8,000 for my mother's dental surgery. The timing coincided perfectly with the renovation of their master bathroom, complete with a luxury shower system my mother had shown off to me without mentioning how it was funded. $5,000 for roof repairs after a storm. Their homeowner's insurance had actually covered this, as I discovered in an email thread mistakenly included in a family sharing account. Each discovery felt like a fresh betrayal. I found myself gasping for breath at times, the physical pain in my chest matching the emotional wounds being inflicted with each revelation. My investigation expanded beyond financial records. I called their family doctor, an old family friend, claiming I needed to coordinate some care. "Dr. Phillips, I'm trying to make sure Dad's back treatments are properly scheduled. Can you remind me which specialist he's seeing?" After a pause, he responded carefully, "Samantha, your father hasn't been treated for back problems in over 2 years. His last MRI showed significant improvement, and he was discharged from care." I thanked him calmly while my free hand clenched into a painful fist. 2 years. For 2 years, they had collected thousands for non-existent treatments. Social media provided more evidence. While claiming financial hardship, my parents had taken 4 vacations in the past year alone. My mother's supposed arthritis didn't prevent her from posting photos of herself golfing, an activity she told me was impossible with her condition. The family email account yielded perhaps the most painful discoveries. In a folder labeled Sam, I found meticulous notes on my schedule, financial situation, and emotional vulnerabilities. They had created an actual playbook for manipulating me. When asking for larger amounts, mention feeling like a burden first. Sam always overcompensates when we say this. If she hesitates, bring up how Jason needed braces as a child and how it strained our finances. This triggers her childhood competitive feelings. Never ask when she mentions work stress. Wait until she talks about team successes, then introduce financial needs. They had been studying me like a mark in a long con, identifying and exploiting my psychological weak points with clinical precision. The physical symptoms of this betrayal manifested strongly. I couldn't eat, the thought of food making me nauseous. Sleep came in brief, restless intervals. Anxiety attacks struck without warning, leaving me gasping and shaking. I lost 4 pounds in 3 days. On the second night, I finally called Alicia. She arrived within 30 minutes, armed with ice cream and wine, though I could touch neither. As I showed her the evidence I'd gathered, her expression shifted from concern to horror to rage. Those manipulative, selfish. She couldn't even finish the sentence. Sam, this is abuse. Financial and emotional abuse. I should have seen it, I whispered, staring at the spreadsheet of transactions. How did I not see it? Because they're your family and you love them. Because you're a good person who assumes others are acting in good faith. She squeezed my hand. This isn't your fault. On her recommendation, I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Marshall, the therapist I'd seen after my breakup with David. In her calm office, I unloaded the entire situation. What you're describing is a sophisticated pattern of emotional manipulation, she explained. Your family identified your core values, particularly your sense of familial duty and desire for approval, and weaponized them against you. But how could I be so blind? I asked, the question that had been haunting me. Children are conditioned to trust their parents implicitly. That programming runs deep. Additionally, you described a childhood where your needs were secondary to your brother's. You were trained early to overlook your own interests in favor of family harmony. As we talked, patterns emerged from my childhood through adulthood. The uneven distribution of love and resources. The subtle messages that my worth was tied to achievement and usefulness. The constant positioning of Jason's needs above mine. I had been primed my entire life for this exploitation. What do I do now? I asked finally. Dr. Marshall leaned forward slightly. That depends entirely on what you want, Samantha. What matters now is that you make choices based on your own well-being, not obligations to people who have betrayed your trust. For the first time in days, I felt something other than pain and betrayal. A small spark of anger ignited, not the destructive kind, but the protective fire that illuminates boundaries and self-worth. As I left her office, I knew exactly what needed to happen next. After 3 days of investigation and emotional processing, I was ready to confront my family. This wouldn't be an impulsive, emotional outburst. With Alicia and my colleague Michael's help, I planned a strategic approach that would leave no room for further manipulation. I compiled my evidence into a comprehensive digital presentation. Screenshots of the group chat, bank statements, social media posts contradicting their claims of hardship, and a complete financial accounting of every dollar I'd provided. I organized everything on my laptop and backed it up to a secure cloud folder. I texted my parents. I'd like to discuss increasing your monthly support. Can we meet Sunday at your house? Their enthusiastic response came within minutes. Sunday arrived with remarkable clarity. The anxiety and nausea that had plagued me for days subsided, replaced by calm determination. I dressed professionally, as if for an important business meeting, which in many ways this was. This presentation would determine the future of my relationship with my family. I arrived at their house precisely at noon. Through the front window, I could see them sitting in the living room, smiling and animated. My father was actually rubbing his hands together, A gesture of anticipation I'd never noticed before but now seemed predatory. When I entered, my mother hurried to hug me. "There's our girl. We made your favorite coffee cake." My father patted the couch beside him. "Come sit, Sam. We were just talking about that cruise. Your mother's really looking forward to it." What surprised me most was finding Jason there, slouched in the armchair, looking uncomfortable. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, guilt evident in his expression. "Before we talk, I'd like to show you something," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I connected my laptop to their television, a large smart screen I had unknowingly financed. The first slide appeared. Screenshots of their Sam's Wallet group chat. The room went completely silent. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father froze mid-motion, reaching for his coffee mug. Jason sank deeper into his chair, looking like he wanted to disappear. "Jason accidentally sent these to me on Thursday," I explained calmly. "He meant to send them to Rachel." "Samantha." My father started, his tone placating. "This isn't what it looks like. We were just joking around." I clicked to the next slide, showing more screenshots. Joking about calling me stupid? About being your personal ATM? About manipulating me when I was vulnerable after my breakup? "You're taking this all out of context," my mother interjected, tears already forming. Always her first defense mechanism. I continued through my presentation methodically. Bank statements showing transfers. Their social media posts during supposed medical crises. The list of expenses they had fabricated. "The back procedure you claim to need, Dad?" I spoke with Dr. Phillips. "You were discharged from treatment 2 years ago." My father's expression hardened. "You had no right to discuss my medical information. And you had no right to lie about medical conditions to extract money from your daughter," I countered. I played a recording of my phone conversation with Jason from Thursday night, where he admitted the deception had been going on for years. His face paled as his own voice filled the room. "This is ridiculous," my father blustered when the recording ended. "We're family. Families joke about things. You're being oversensitive." "Is this a joke?" I asked, displaying their detailed notes on how to manipulate me emotionally. "Is studying your daughter's psychological vulnerabilities to exploit them for money something families typically do?" My mother switched tactics, tears flowing freely now. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By accusing us of terrible things. What exactly have you done for me?" I asked quietly. "I worked multiple jobs through college while you fully supported Jason. I built my career through hard work while sending you thousands of dollars monthly. I sacrificed my own financial security to ensure yours. We raised you," my father said indignantly. "Fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. You owe us." That statement crystallized everything. "Children aren't investments that pay dividends, Dad. You chose to have me. Basic care was your legal and moral obligation, not something I need to spend my adult life repaying." My mother tried another approach. "Remember when you were 7 and I stayed up all night making your costume for the school play? Remember how proud you were?" I remember, I nodded. "I also remember when you missed my high school graduation because Jason had a basketball game. I remember working 3 jobs in college while you paid Jason's entire tuition. I remember every time my accomplishments were acknowledged with distracted nods while his mediocrity received celebration." Jason finally spoke, his voice small. "Sam, I never meant for it to go this far. It started with small things and then you realized how easy it was to use me." I finished for him. "How did it feel, Jason? Laughing at my pain while I comforted you through breakups, job losses, and financial troubles? How did it feel taking a new laptop from me after I cried on your shoulder about David?" He had no answer, just stared at his hands. My father's demeanor changed, anger replacing denial. "You've always thought you were better than us, with your fancy job and education. Who do you think you are, coming here and attacking your family like this?" "I'm someone who deserved better than to be exploited by the people who should have loved me most," I replied, my voice finally showing emotion. "I'm someone who gave you everything I could, only to discover you were laughing at my generosity behind my back." "So that's it?" my mother demanded. "You're going to abandon your family over some silly text messages?" "They weren't silly, Mom. They were calculated and cruel. And yes, I'm done being your personal bank account. As I packed up my laptop, my father made one last attempt. You'll regret this, Samantha. Family is all you have in this world. I looked at him directly. No, Dad. Family is supposed to be people who love and respect you. What I had with you is a transaction, not a relationship. And I'm closing the account. I walked out as they called after me. Their voices a mixture of anger, pleading, and sudden desperate apologies. The front door closed behind me, shutting out their voices, but not the weight of what had just occurred. In my car, I sat for a moment in silence, feeling lighter than I had in years despite the heaviness of the situation. For the first time in my adult life, I was putting myself first. My first impulse after the confrontation was to seek dramatic revenge. I fantasized about exposing them publicly, sharing the screenshots with extended family, or taking legal action. The hurt part of me wanted them to suffer as I had suffered. Instead, I channeled these emotions into a more calculated response. The following Monday, I met with my financial advisor, Martin. Based on what you've shared, this was clearly financial exploitation, he said after reviewing my documentation. While there might be legal grounds for action, pursuing it could be emotionally draining and the outcome uncertain since you voluntarily provided the funds. Next, I consulted with Caroline, an attorney specializing in family law. She outlined my options clearly. You could potentially sue for fraud, given the deliberate deception, she explained. However, the process would be lengthy and expose painful personal details. Alternatively, we could create a formal repayment contract, though enforcement might be challenging. After careful consideration, I decided against immediate legal action. My goal wasn't revenge, but protection and closure. With Caroline's help, I drafted a formal letter documenting the financial exploitation and establishing clear boundaries moving forward. My protection plan included several components. First, I immediately froze all financial support. The monthly transfers stopped, credit cards I had provided for emergencies were canceled, and automatic payments for their subscriptions and services terminated. Second, I changed all passwords to accounts they might have access to, including email, social media, and shopping sites. I discovered they had been using my Amazon Prime account extensively, ordering items I unknowingly paid for. Third, I documented everything in case the situation escalated. Every text, email, and voicemail was saved and backed up. Caroline advised me to communicate only in writing to maintain a clear record. Fourth, I set up an automatic reply to family emails. I am not available to discuss financial matters. Any communication regarding money should be directed to my attorney, Caroline Winters. I provided her contact information, knowing they wouldn't actually reach out to a lawyer. The responses came quickly. My phone exploded with calls and texts, which I did not answer. Instead, I reviewed them later with Dr. Marshall, identifying the manipulation tactics they employed: guilt, obligation, family loyalty, health concerns, and when those failed, anger and threats. 1 week after the confrontation, Jason appeared at my workplace. I was returning from lunch when I saw him waiting in the lobby. He looked terrible, with dark circles under his eyes and rumpled clothing. Sam, please. Just 5 minutes, he pleaded when I attempted to walk past him. Against my better judgment, I agreed to speak with him in the building's coffee shop, a public place where the conversation would remain civil. They're panicking, he admitted immediately. Their financial situation is way worse than you knew. That's not my problem anymore. I replied calmly. You don't understand. They've been living completely beyond their means for years. The house has a second mortgage you don't know about. Their credit cards are maxed out. They were counting on your money. While I felt momentary concern, I reminded myself this could be another manipulation tactic. They have retirement income and a house they could downsize from. They're not destitute, Jason. They just can't live the lifestyle they've become accustomed to at my expense. He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. There's something else you should know. I've been taking money from you too, through them. Explain, I said coldly. They would tell you they needed money for something, then give part of it to me. For rent, car payments, whatever. I knew it was wrong, but it was so easy. His voice broke. I'm sorry, Sam. I really am. I studied my brother, this person I'd grown up with who had become a stranger. His remorse seemed genuine. But I had thought their gratitude was genuine too. I appreciate your honesty, but it doesn't change anything. You all made choices, and now you're facing the consequences. As days passed, my parents escalated their tactics. They showed up unannounced at my apartment building, forcing me to instruct security not to allow them up. They called my office multiple times until my assistant began screening all calls. They even contacted my boss, claiming a family emergency. A new low that fortunately backfired when he recognized the manipulation attempt. The most dramatic incident occurred 3 weeks after the confrontation. I received frantic calls and texts from both parents claiming my mother had been hospitalized with a heart attack. They demanded I come immediately. Instead, I called the hospital directly and learned there was no patient admitted under my mother's name. Another lie, this one particularly cruel. My parents then began reaching out to family, friends, and distant relatives, sharing a distorted version of events that painted me as an ungrateful daughter abandoning them in their time of need. I addressed this with a single, factual email to close family friends, attaching key screenshots as evidence and requesting privacy as I worked through this difficult situation. The response was overwhelmingly supportive, with several people admitting they had witnessed concerning behavior from my parents in the past, but hadn't felt it was their place to speak up. As the financial reality of their situation set in, my parents began making adjustments that revealed the extent of their deception. They listed their luxury car for sale. My mother returned several expensive designer items that had been recent purchases. They canceled the cruise that had supposedly been for health reasons. During this period, I received an unexpected call from my Aunt Elizabeth, my father's sister who lived across the country. We had never been particularly close, but her message stunned me. "I need you to know you're not the first, Samantha," she said without preamble. "They did similar things to your grandfather, to me, even to some close friends. It's a pattern that goes back decades." This information, while painful, provided validation and context that helped my healing process. I wasn't uniquely gullible. I was the latest target in a long history of manipulation. Through my research, I discovered my parents had opted out of parts of their retirement plan to receive more cash upfront, creating the shortfall they claimed was due to medical expenses. With Caroline's help, I arranged for them to be transferred back to the standard coverage, ensuring their basic needs would be met without my intervention. My final act was sending a formal accounting through Caroline. The document itemized every false claim they had made and the corresponding amounts I had provided, totaling over $60,000 in the past 2 years alone. While I had no expectation of repayment, I wanted them to face the concrete evidence of their deception. I also established a small trust with strict conditions, accessible only for verified medical emergencies and managed by a neutral third party. This wasn't for them, but for my own peace of mind, ensuring I wouldn't have to question my decision if a genuine health crisis occurred. The ultimate revenge wasn't dramatic or vindictive. It was simply living well, establishing healthy boundaries, and refusing to participate in their manipulation any longer. By protecting myself financially and emotionally, I reclaimed power they had systematically stripped away. This wasn't about hurting them, but about healing myself. The first month after cutting ties with my family felt like grief. I mourned not just the relationships I had lost, but the relationships I had thought existed. The loving parents, the loyal brother, the supportive family unit I had believed in were illusions, carefully constructed mirages designed to keep the money flowing. During this period, my support system proved invaluable. Alicia checked on me daily, sometimes just sitting with me in silence when words failed. My colleague Michael, who had helped prepare for the confrontation, invited me to join his family for Sunday dinners, providing warmth and normalcy when I needed it most. Other friends organized activities to keep me engaged and connected, preventing the isolation that often accompanies family estrangement. Dr. Marshall's therapy sessions became a crucial part of my healing journey. We worked systematically to identify and address the patterns established throughout my life. You've developed strong people-pleasing tendencies, she observed. Your self-worth has been tied to usefulness and achievement rather than intrinsic value. We explored how my family had installed psychological buttons they could push to activate guilt, obligation, and insecurity. Learning to recognize these triggers was the first step in disabling them. When you feel that immediate urge to sacrifice your needs for others, pause, Dr. Marshall advised. Ask yourself, is this a healthy giving from abundance or a conditioned response from scarcity? This simple practice revealed how often I defaulted to self-sacrifice in all relationships, not just with family. I began establishing healthier boundaries with friends, romantic interests, and even at work, where I had been taking on excessive responsibilities without appropriate recognition. To channel my experience constructively, I volunteered with a financial literacy program for women. Teaching others to recognize financial exploitation and establish healthy money boundaries helped transform my pain into purpose. The stories shared by other women showed me how common these dynamics were, particularly in families. This led to creating a support group specifically for those who had experienced financial exploitation by family members. Our monthly meetings became a safe space for sharing experiences and recovery strategies. Facilitating these sessions accelerated my own healing while helping others navigate similar journeys. As my emotional energy freed up from family drama, I rediscovered interests long neglected. I joined a hiking group, took photography classes, and began writing about my experience in a private journal. These activities reconnected me with parts of my identity that existed independently of family roles or professional achievement. At work, my performance actually improved. Without the constant drain of family emergencies and financial stress, I could fully engage with projects and team development. 6 months after the confrontation, I received the promotion I had been working toward, with a significant salary increase that now went toward my future rather than my parents' fabricated needs. My relationship with Michael evolved naturally from friendship to romance. Unlike previous partners who had commented on my excessive family obligations, Michael understood boundaries and respected mine. His own healthy family relationships provided a model of what functional family dynamics could look like, healing some of my cynicism about family connections. Jason attempted contact periodically, his messages showing small signs of personal growth. He had found steady employment and begun therapy himself. While I wasn't ready for reconciliation, I acknowledged his messages briefly, maintaining firm boundaries while leaving possibilities open for the future if genuine change occurred. My parents continued attempts to re-establish contact through increasingly desperate means. They sent guilt-laden letters, enlisted distant relatives as intermediaries, and even had their pastor call me. Each attempt was met with the same response: contact through my attorney or not at all. 6 months after our confrontation, I received an unexpected letter from my father. Unlike previous communications filled with manipulation and guilt, this one contains something resembling accountability. I've been reflecting on my behavior and recognized the harm I've caused. No excuses, no justifications. I failed as a father and betrayed your trust in ways that may be unforgivable. I am seeking help to understand why I've treated you this way. I don't expect forgiveness or reconciliation, but wanted you to know I recognize the pain I've caused. I didn't respond immediately, processing the letter with Dr. Marshall first. Whether it represented genuine growth or was another manipulation tactic remained unclear. I decided to acknowledge receipt through Caroline but maintained my boundaries. As the 1-year anniversary of the discovery approached, I took time to reflect on my journey. The pain had not disappeared entirely, but its character had changed. The sharp, breathtaking agony had transformed into a duller ache that surfaced occasionally but no longer controlled my daily experience. What surprised me most was how the experience had clarified my values and strengthened my authentic self. By seeing the explicit blueprint of how I had been manipulated, I could identify and dismantle those mechanisms in all areas of my life. Each boundary established, each people-pleasing habit recognized and modified, represented reclaiming pieces of myself. The money I had previously sent to my parents was redirected to my own well-being and future. I increased my retirement contributions, created an emergency fund, and allocated resources for experiences that brought joy and growth. I took my first solo international trip, started piano lessons I had always wanted to pursue, and began researching graduate programs that interested me. Perhaps most significantly, I developed new traditions to replace family gatherings, Friendsgiving celebrations, holiday volunteer work, and milestone commemorations with chosen family created meaningful rituals that honored authentic connections rather than obligatory ones. The question of forgiveness arose frequently in therapy and support group discussions. Was forgiveness necessary for healing? Was it even possible given the deliberate, long-term nature of the betrayal? Forgiveness isn't an obligation, Dr. Marshall explained. It's a personal choice that may or may not be part of your healing journey. What matters is that you release the hold these events have on your well-being, whether that includes forgiveness or not. This perspective freed me from yet another obligation. I could heal without the pressure to forgive actions that had not been acknowledged or amended. Perhaps someday reconciliation might be possible if genuine transformation occurred, but my healing couldn't depend on their actions or growth. The deepest lesson from this painful chapter was recognizing the difference between transactional and authentic relationships. My family had viewed me as a resource to be extracted, a utility rather than a person. In contrast, my chosen family valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. Moving forward, I approach relationships with greater discernment, but not cynicism. The experience taught me to observe patterns of reciprocity, respect for boundaries, and genuine care. These qualities, not biological connections or longevity, define meaningful relationships worth nurturing. Today, I stand firmly in my worth, recognizing that love should never require sacrifice of dignity or security. True family, whether biological or chosen, uplifts rather than exploits. While the path to this understanding was painful, the clarity it provided shapes a future built on authentic connection rather than obligation. If you've ever experienced similar betrayal from those who should have protected you, remember this. Your worth is inherent, not earned through usefulness or sacrifice. The courage to establish boundaries isn't selfishness, but self-preservation. And sometimes, the most loving choice you can make is to walk away from those who cannot love you properly. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members for your own well-being? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and transformation. Remember that your story matters too, and sometimes sharing it helps others feel less alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening, and may you find the strength to choose yourself when necessary.